They promised the shield would save us from nuclear annihilation. They were right. They also promised a new era of peace.
We designed the game for console from the beginning. We didn't have to, have a PC game and think, okay, how do we remap those controls? And we had we had three main reference points, three games that we really looked at. First one, our starting point, was we looked at Madden football and sports games really closely, because Madden, for example, in a lot of ways, it's a strategy game. You've got this high-level game where you call your plays, and then you go to the field and you've got your team made up of a number of players. You directly control one guy, but the guys off the ball are acting in intelligent ways, and you can call plays and so on. So that's a model that you can apply to a battlefield. You can make that play, you can make a battlefield play like that. So we started like that idea that you have your camera on one guy, but you can switch your control, and you can go up to the higher level and give high-level tactical, high-level strategic commands as well. Then the other game we looked really closely at was BioWare, and what had they done? How had they taken like a PC genre, Neverwinter Nights and Baldur's Gate, which was controls very much like an RTS, you click and drag and you point and click and you click a lot of buttons on screen, and they'd moved that to Knights of the Old Republic. It's just fantastic, console game, and they'd put the camera down so you've got this immersive field of view. They'd put the controls again, they'd made it to third person, and they'd use the D-pad for sort of, deeper sort of orders, whether it's your spells or whatever. And we sort of really took that as our reference model. So going from PC as a 2D top-down point and click experience to a real 3D immersive world that you navigate. And the sports, and then the other games, of course, we looked at were basically when we were looking at first-person shooters and war games, all of the features that they've been adding recently in order to innovate, in order to push that forward, have been strategy game features. Whether it's Battlefield giving you the commander view, or giving you tanks and helicopters and combined arms, trying to make a big battlefield, that's a strategy game concept, being brought to the to that genre. Or Ghost Recon with your squad commands and tactics. You're issuing orders for those guys to go over there and outflank the enemy. You're calling airstrikes. You've got support. So we wanted that sort of experience, but we wanted it like a real war, which means making it 50 times bigger. So you've got 1,000 guys on a battlefield, not 16 guys on a battlefield. Actually, it's really interesting. I think that FPS games on console have been innovating more in terms of how to make a battlefield scenario with different sorts of objectives and different types of missions than kind of old PC RTS games have. So, Quake Wars is an obvious example of a really good objective-based game. And basically we're much closer to that sort of model. It's not, you're not in the middle of a battle fighting, oh, I want to build a factory. You're thinking like a general. So it's, I want to capture this strategic point, I want to move to that objective, I want to control that objective. So they're very much made more like real battlefield scenarios. So we have conquest modes, where your objective is to take and hold key points on the battlefield. We have annihilation modes, where your objective is, much more purely strategy to destroy the enemy. We have sabotage missions, which are like special ops missions. So one player has only got sort of light, special forces. The other player's got a bigger force, but you win by sneaking around and destroying set targets. We have siege missions, where one player's got a very defensible position, the other player's trying to annihilate them and they're trying to break out. And all of our game modes are either single player, multiplayer or co-op, but some we've really optimized as co-op as well. We have like an army, sort of basically an army blitz version where there's just hordes of weaker sort of NPC troops and you're playing co-op with your friends to hold off that assault. And we have like terrorist hunt missions as well. The other thing we're thinking is, okay, the player's a general. How is it that what is the interface if you really are a general? What do? You talk to your guys, you use communications. So the voice command was just a totally natural fit for this game. It's like if you play House of the Dead, you want to use a gun. If you order guys around, you want to talk to them. So that was doubly good because It's really intuitive, of course, because you press one button and you read on screen and you can play the entire game like that. And it's immersive because you're actually talking to your soldiers and they're talking back, and it really helps make that, connection. They're not just little pawns or toy soldiers on a battlefield. You're actually communicating with these guys, and it does make an emotional difference as well. So we're 2020, so it's near future. All of the weapons and technologies and everything in the game are at the working prototype stage now. So we haven't like invented anything or come up with anything sci-fi, but even keeping it in that reality, there's some pretty amazing stuff. Like the battlefields of 2020 are going to be very lethal, intense places. For example, just to pick one faction, our American forces are based on some of the technologies getting researched in the future combat system at the moment, and a big part of the specialisation there is like what's called unmanned vehicles. So we have combat drones that are armed with sentry guns and friend-foe recognition, so they can basically target and kill anyone that they don't recognise. UAVs, so unmanned aerial vehicles, as hunter-killers patrolling over the battlefield. Next generation, what's called active denial, so energy weapons. They're using these in Iraq now, actually, that within a radius, it's a microwave that makes everybody feel like their skin's about to burn off. So directed energy weapons like that. Next generation types of composite armors and countermeasures. So we've got these really, very, very tough, survivable armored vehicles and tanks that can really get in there and fight. Helicopter, gunships. The list goes on. So, but the American specialization of their forces is very much heightened survivability and unmanned vehicles and the drones and so on. Our European force, which is also this sort of next-gen military hardware, specialised a lot in like what's called directed energy weapons and electronic warfare. So they've got really high-tech jammers that can, shut down enemy systems. They've got high-energy tactical lasers, either from ground-based or space-based weapons. And the Russians have just got all sorts of crazy shit that's on the table at the moment. So, a lot of stuff to really upset or shake things up compared to the other two factions. The thing is, it's a Tom Clancy game, so we wanted something, or we're aiming for something very realistic and very authentic. And it's kind of, I guess it's in the spirit of Red Storm Rising in that it's a future, it's a near future World War III scenario. So when we started thinking about how that could really happen, and we started looking at the news headlines of what was appearing, there were two big trends. One which actually Russia is complaining about right now is the missile defense. So America and Europe working on space-based and ground-based missile defense and interceptors and so on. And in our game in 2020 that works perfectly, and not only for ballistic missiles, but any high altitude bombers and stuff as well. Anything in the upper atmosphere can basically get knocked out from space. So that brings the battlefield back down to land warfare again. And the other thing that does is it removes the threat of complete annihilation that has stopped superpowers from being able to really go to war, to settle their problems on the battlefield for 60 years. So it really puts the world back into a situation in terms of international relations that's much more like it was before World War I, World War II. The other trend in the world today that's just going to get stronger as populations increase and competition gets greater is competition for resources. So actually it was way too easy for us to find realistic scenarios where that becomes a massive problem. So a single terrorist attack in Saudi Arabia can knock out 30% of the world's oil overnight. But what we had as well, which also has been in the news lately, is the oil companies, basically to keep their stocks up, their shares up, have been massively overstating how much oil we have left. And actually the reality is much worse, and we run out a lot faster than we think. Economies go into free fall, massive crisis, and it's really for their own economic survival that these superpowers have to start fighting for what's left.
Arm the kinetic strike on my position.
At any cost.